Well, it is that time of year where normally I would say if you still have Christmas lights or decorations up at your house, you may want to think about that. But I am about to preach a Christmas sermon in mid-February, so I'm going to let it slide. Everybody good with that? All right, so Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 is where we're going to dig in. So what we're going to do today is walk through this story, famous story in Matthew 2. I'm going to make some comments along the way to help us understand the context, and then we'll make some points at the end today and see how this applies to our lives. So Matthew chapter 2, let's start in verse 1. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. All right, so let's stop right there and set some context here. So Matthew introduces us here to some very important figures in this story, but there's a few things about each of these that you need to know. So first of all, let's make sure we understand who Herod the king, also known as Herod the Great, was. So Herod the Great, he reigned as king over Palestine, which was a Roman province in the Israel, where Israel is today. He reigned there from about 37 BC to 4 BC. Now, he was appointed as the king of the Jews by the Roman Empire. But he's not a true king. He's a faux king. He's a fake king. He's not from Israel. He himself is not a Hebrew. He is not a Jew. He is not from Israel. He is from a place to the south called Idumea. So Herod has no legitimate birthright to be the king of the Jews, to be the king of Israel. He has no legitimate birthright to this throne that he sits on. And he knows that. And it kind of makes him insecure. See, here's the thing about Herod. Herod the Great was a megalomaniac by definition. He is obsessed with his own power, and he will do whatever it takes to keep his power. So, for example, history records show us, outside of the Bible, this was a historical known fact, that Herod the Great murdered his own wife and several of his children. Why? Because he saw them as potential threats to his throne. He also murdered some of his other relatives for posing potential threats to his throne. So let's be clear on who Herod the Great is. He is a crazy, evil dictator, and everybody knows it, but nobody can do anything about it because he's been appointed by Caesar in Rome, so only Caesar can remove him. And Caesar at the time was a little crazy himself. So that's Herod the Great. Now, these wise men that Matthew mentions from the east, who are they? Well, the term used there in Greek could refer to some astrologists from Persia or perhaps Babylon who may have been familiar with Old Testament prophecies about the coming Messiah in Israel, simply just by interacting with any Jews that would have lived in Babylon at the time. So these wise men, again, they could have been astrologers, maybe philosophers, scientists, but they were obviously very smart, intelligent people who really understood that something miraculous was happening over Israel, and they wanted to be a part of it. Now, from Babylon to Bethlehem is about 800 miles. 800 miles this caravan of important people had to travel just to get to see where Jesus was born. Now, what I'm about to tell you may be the most important sermon point I have ever told you. Okay, you ready for this? The wise men were not at the nativity scene, okay? I hate to ruin all of your Christmas decorations, okay? But when you put out the nativity scene in your house, you've got to take the wise men out of it, okay? So if your nativity scene is in the living room, that's fine, but take the wise men and put them either upstairs or in the garage or out in the driveway, because they are on their way, but they're not there yet, okay? It was an 800-mile journey, all right? So I hate to spoil your fun, but the wise men were not there. All right, so now that I got that out of my system, Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. So the wise men come to Herod, all right, this megalomaniac, this crazy evil dictator. These are smart guys. They know something's going on over here in the West, in Israel. What do they say? They come to Herod and they say, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. So what about this star then? Well, again, we're not really sure what was happening here. This was most likely a supernatural event of some kind. It maybe was an angel in the sky that they saw. We don't know for sure, and that's not really the point of the story as to what this light was over Bethlehem. But nonetheless, think how significant their statement is to Herod. These wise men are coming up to this crazy dictator king, and they're coming up to him and saying, hey, where's the real king of the Jews? Now, I don't know if they knew that he had already murdered several family members, right? But they're coming up to him, and that's what they're asking. And so, okay, Herod probably didn't like this, right? He knows that he's not in the royal lineage. He knows that he's not a descendant of King David. So technically, he's not the true king of the Jews. But if there is a baby born somewhere nearby who is a descendant of David, well, then Herod thinks that his throne is being threatened if there is a rightful heir to that throne. So here's how that conversation plays out, verse 3 through 6. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ, and that word Christ means Messiah, the Messiah was to be born. They told him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for it is written by the prophet, and they're quoting from Micah chapter 5, verse 2 here, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So Herod, see, he's not an actual Israelite, right? So he doesn't really know the scriptures, so he has to consult his advisory team about the scriptures, and they tell him, well, there is a prophecy actually, and when an unhinged and evil dictator is troubled, well, then it says there all of Jerusalem was troubled. Yeah, they're all on edge. If Herod's in a bad mood, everybody better watch out. Who knows what he's capable of doing? So his advisors tell him this is in line with this prophecy from Micah, the prophet, hundreds of years before. Verse 7. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. Now, secretly, because he is plotting something here, right? See, the timing of this, the timing of when the star rose versus all of these things that are being asked about and prophesied, he's trying to work out a time frame here for when this baby was actually born. Verse 8, and he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. Right. This is a complete lie, right? He does not want to worship him. He wants to kill him. Verse 9 through 12. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshiped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So this is very interesting. The wise men, after 800 miles, a long trip, right? Jesus is probably about 2 years old at this point, but the family's still living in Bethlehem in a house, all right? So they get there, and they're super excited. It's been a long journey. They've been carrying these gifts with them, right? So their caravan finally arrives. And after they give the gifts to the baby, and I don't think the wise men knew that he was divine, right? I mean, maybe, I don't know. We're not told for sure. But they were searching for truth. They were searching for answers. Either way, God is guiding these men, right? He's guiding these wise men through all of this, even if they don't fully understand what's happening here. But then that leads us to verse 13. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. "Out of Egypt I called my son." Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious. And he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. This is one of the most horrific scenes you can imagine. This is pure evil on full display. Every male child, 2 years old and younger, are taken from their homes in Bethlehem and slaughtered. Bethlehem, which was a small village, could have probably had anywhere, so historians, based on population estimates, there were probably between 10 and 30 male children living in the little village of Bethlehem at the time, 2 years old, male children 2 years old and under. So probably 10 to 30 baby boys, all of them were taken from their homes and murdered. And I can't help but think what Mary and Joseph were thinking when the angel appeared to them and warned them to get out of there, that they had to leave and go to Egypt, of all places, because that was outside of Herod's jurisdiction. You know, the panic. I mean, think about it. Think about it if you're a parent, your firstborn child. If you were told that someone was hunting them. And so the panic and the fear and the chaos over Joseph and Mary in that moment when the angel warned them to leave, they had just received these gifts from these outsiders, these foreigners, and now they're being hunted by an insider, one of their own, at least the king who is over their own. So now they have to immediately leave with whatever they can, whatever they can carry on their backs, or at best in a small cart, maybe pulled by a donkey. And they have to travel about 90 miles to the Egyptian border, and who knows how much further in they went. So they immediately just put everything together, all this stuff, and you have to imagine even just the gifts that the wise men gave them, those were very valuable. They probably, and this is a little bit of conjecture here, I'm just speculating, but I can't imagine a scenario where they don't sell those gifts they just received to finance their trip. They have to flee to protect their son. So less than 2 years of age, Jesus is now a refugee, fleeing to a neighboring country, seeking asylum. Verse 19. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, "Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. So after Herod the Great dies, the angel tells Joseph it is safe to return to Israel, but not to Bethlehem or anywhere near Jerusalem, because Archelaus, so that's Herod the Great's son who inherited his throne, he's the king now, and this is hard to imagine, but he was worse than his dad, because he was so cruel, he was so wicked, that even Rome, the Roman Empire, forced him to step down from being king and banished him to the region of Gaul in Europe. That's how bad he was. Like, you know it's bad when Rome is saying, hey man, I think you're going too far, right? You're too bad. You can't be king anymore. But this is the world that Jesus came to. This is the violent, chaotic, horrific, evil world that Jesus came to, right in the middle of it. And so from this story, I think we see three things that are desperately needed in this world: the ancient world, the modern world alike. And Matthew is telling us in chapter 2 of his biography that Jesus brings the answer to all three of these great needs that the world has. Number one, what do we see here in the story? We see the need for a righteous king. We see the need for a righteous king. You see, throughout history, there is no shortage of evil and wicked leaders. All you got to do is crack open a history book or turn on the History Channel. You're going to see all of that. But Herod, the imposter king, he is evil and wicked on a scale seldom seen. I mean, reading about this, or even seeing it around the world today, things that might be similar, it just puts a deep disturbance in our hearts, does it not? I think when we think about the chaos and the violence in our world today, we all long for a day when all evil and wicked rule on this earth will come to an end. You see, the ancient world then, 2,000 years ago, and the modern world today, we need the same thing. We need a righteous king. Now, personally, I am very grateful. I am very grateful to live in a democracy in the modern world. But no nation on this earth is ever going to perfect a certain system or type of government. So what that means is, as Christians, we know there's something else, like there's something better. We cannot put our hope in any system of government or ruler or political figure on this earth. We just can't. So for me, if you told me that the person who created the heavens and the earth, that he is going to rule over his heavens and his earth as an eternal king in an eternal monarchy. As an American, I'm like, ooh, a monarchy? I don't know, right? But at first, it might sound suspicious. But when you realize that the king, the monarch, that he's the one that created it all, that he owns the rights to it all. Boy, I'll take that government any day and every day over anything else this world has ever tried to put together. There is only one government that will last, and only one kind of ruler that can give us the peace that we really want and we really need. Hundreds of years before Jesus was born, the prophet Micah said this in Micah chapter 5, verse 2. He said, "But you, O Bethlehem Ephrathah, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, just a little town, just a little village, from you, though, shall come forth for me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. He has always been, he always will be. The prophet Isaiah echoes this in chapter 9 of his prophecy. He says this, hundreds of years before Jesus would be born. What does he say? He says, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. On the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore." Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that king. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about our king, our righteous King Jesus. The first time Jesus came to earth, as we just read this week and last week in Matthew 1, the first time he came to earth, he came as a helpless baby. And when he grew up, things didn't go very well, at least not by the world's definition. He was crucified with a sign over his head on that cross that read in a mocking fashion, "King of the Jews." And his throne was not made of gold, it was made of wood. A wooden cross. But the next time this king comes, the next time King Jesus comes to earth, he's not coming as a helpless baby. He is coming as the righteous warrior king that he is. The king of the world, and he will sit on his right throne forever. And he will put an end to all evil. And every evil leader who has ever lived will stand before him and will answer for their actions and their words and the way they led others. So while we live in a messed up world, do not grow weary, Christians. Do not grow weary. Our King, the Son of David, he's coming back. Number two, the second thing we see in this story is the need for a global mission. The need for a global mission. So here's something else that Micah says about this ruler born in this small little village of Bethlehem. The prophet Micah said hundreds of years before, "And he shall stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they shall dwell secure, for now he shall be great." Where? Just in Israel, man. No, to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the entire earth. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that Matthew begins his biography of Jesus with wise men from a foreign country coming to worship this new king. And then also, at the very end of his biography of Jesus, he gives this command. He quotes Jesus giving this command to his disciples to go to where? All nations. All nations sharing his good news of salvation. Do you see the bookends there? The beginning of Matthew and the end of Matthew, it's not just that Jesus is the Messiah and the king that Israel's been waiting for. He's the king for the entire world, all the nations. Matthew 28:19. This is the last few verses of the entire book of Matthew. He says what? "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit." So Matthew is showing us in these first two chapters, he's showing us that even as a baby, Jesus is already having a global impact. People are coming to worship him from other nations other than Israel. He is truly not just the son of David, he is the son of Abraham, because he is already bringing blessings to the families of the world, to the nations. But I think about these wise men, and we're not told much about them, and every single depiction of them I've ever seen in a Christmas story, like movie or kids show or whatever, they always look so different. Like there's no consensus on what these guys actually look like or what they wore and all this kind of stuff, right? But those details aren't what's most important. I think what we see here in these wise men, man, they really had a sincere desire to know truth, you know? Like whatever truth was, that's what they wanted. They wanted truth. They didn't want just conjecture. They didn't want speculation. These were scientists. They wanted truth. And they had that deep desire inside of them. They had devoted their whole lives in this effort to discovering truth in philosophy, astrology, science. And I just can't help but think of how our world today is filled with people also searching for truth. Like everyone. This is not just a wise man thing. This is an everyone thing. Everyone is searching for truth, right? I mean, you want your life to be built on truth. Whatever you think is true, that's what you're building your life on now. Whatever you define as happiness, that's what you're building your life on now. But if you dig beneath the surface of just our simple pursuits of comfort and ease and happiness in our modern world, if you really dig to the bedrock of that, there's some kind of core belief that you have, that I have in our hearts, that's telling us this is what is right. This is what is true, so live your life accordingly. Now, you may believe a false truth. In other words, you may not know the truth, but there's some kind of truth that you've created for yourself, and that's what most of the world does today. In fact, that's what we're told to do. The secular consensus of America is find whatever is true for you and live according to that. But what if, here's the dilemma with that, among many things. What if what's true for you is not true for me, and then what do we do when those two things collide? Physical violence? Just fight it out? What do? Debate it out? See, there has to be, and there only can be, logically, one solid source of truth. That's what our world is searching for. And so here's what we know. Here's what we know about the God of the universe who came to earth to rescue us. He is the source of truth. The good news that we have, that the righteous King is coming, he's coming back to make all things new. This is not some truth for us to keep for ourselves. This is good news. This is healing news for a broken world. So we must be diligent in seeking to share this truth, this hope of Christ, with our world. I love this famous quote from John Piper. He's a great pastor and theologian, from a book he wrote years back called Let the Nations Be Glad. And here's what he said. He said, missions is not the ultimate goal of the church. Worship is. Mission exists because worship does not. When this age is over and the countless millions of the redeemed fall on their faces before the throne of God, missions will be no more. It's a temporary necessity. But worship abides forever. Worship, therefore, is the fuel and the goal in missions. In missions, we simply aim to bring the nations into the white-hot enjoyment of God's glory. I love the way he says that. The white-hot enjoyment of God's glory. Do you see what he's saying there? He's saying, the goal in missions is not to convince your neighbor or someone across the world to check a box and sign up for Christianity. You'll receive our emails every week, right? That's not the goal. The goal is not just to make converts so we can grow our club or our camp. The goal of missions is the worship of the righteous King. And so as we engage with our neighbors across the street, as we engage with our coworkers, as we engage through funding and sending missionaries around this world, as we engage in these things, the goal is not just to grow us. The goal is to bring worship and glory to the righteous King, the true source of all truth. And so we look at others around us and we begin to see them differently. People are not projects. People are people, just like you, created in the image of God. And so we look at them, and we begin to look at them differently, and we say, I want to help you see the glory of Jesus. I want to help you see the enjoyment of God's presence in your life. How can I do that? But how can we bring that enjoyment of God's glory to the world? We must share with them the hope of a new exodus, their own exodus. What do you mean? Number 3, that's the third thing we see in this story. We see the need, not only the need for a righteous king, which we know we have, and he's going to return. We see not only the need for a global mission to spread his glory and his good news around this earth, but we see the need for a new exodus, because none of this is going to happen if there's not a new exodus. What do you mean? You see, the child genocide that took place that we just read in Matthew chapter 2 in Bethlehem at the beginning of the first century, that was not the first time that something like that had ever happened to God's people. About 1,500 years earlier, another horrific child genocide took place in Egypt against God's people. Look at this, Exodus chapter 1, verse 22. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. See, like Herod, Pharaoh was obsessed with his own power. He would do anything to keep it. So you fast forward 1,500 years, and what do you have? You have Mary, Joseph, and Jesus having to flee to Egypt to escape the same kind of tragedy. Verse 14 and 15 of Matthew 2, look at this again. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet Micah out of the prophet Hosea. Out of Egypt I called my son. Out of Egypt I called my son. So look at this. This is the prophecy, Hosea chapter 11, verse 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Do you see what Matthew's doing here? Matthew is a literary genius. He is writing this historical account of Jesus' life, and at the same time showing us how all of this is connected to the Old Testament. Jesus, he is saying, Matthew's saying here, that Jesus is now the true and better Israel. You see, Israel in the Old Testament was referred to as God's son. Matthew is saying, now Jesus is the true Israel. He is God's son. And something else is implied here. That not only is Jesus the true Israel, he's also the true and better Moses. What do you mean? Think about it. Like baby Moses, baby Jesus escaped an act of child genocide. Like Moses, Jesus would grow up, and what is he going to do? He's going to liberate his people in what we now call an exodus, an escape from slavery. But it's a different kind of slavery, and it's a different kind of Egypt. It's our own Egypt, our own slavery to sin. And how's he going to do it? You see, God rescued Israel, his son, God's son Israel. God rescued them out of Egypt, but they failed to be the people God called them to be, to represent God to the world. That was the whole purpose all along of God choosing Abraham's family, was for them to represent him to the rest of the world, because the rest of the world who was searching for truth and answers to their lives, in desperate need of truth, longing for a source of truth and a righteous king, Israel's purpose was to show them he is here. He's coming. We know him. He's coming. And he's going to be great. You're going to love him when he gets here. We know the one true God. But they failed. Israel did not do this. So what does Jesus do? He comes to earth to do what Israel could not do. Jesus comes out of Egypt with Mary and Joseph as a 2-year-old little boy, as the true Israel, as the true son. And what does he do? He lives his life the life Israel was supposed to live as our true representative. He does everything we could never do, and he does it for us, and he does it as one of us. It's remarkable. It's remarkable how God had all this figured out. That he knew that his people, his creation, his creatures, the people, every human that he made in his image, he knew that we could not do it. We could not live up to God's standards. That we all have sin in our hearts, that we all have failures, that we all make mistakes. God knew. And so what did he do? He didn't just swipe us off the face of the earth. He's not a Herod. He's not a Pharaoh. No, he became one of us. And he put himself in our own suffering and in our own pain so that he could walk in your shoes, so that he could live the life that you could not live, that I could not live, a life of perfect obedience to God, so that then he could be a perfect sacrifice and die on the cross, his wooden throne, in my place, in your place. That's the death, the spiritual, eternal death that we should all die, but we don't when we put our faith in Christ. And he rose from the grave on the third day because he's God. And that's what God does. You see, not only is Jesus a righteous king with a global mission, he is a king who can relate to you. Listen, don't ever lose sight of this. Whatever you're going through, whatever troubles you, whatever keeps you awake at night, do you know? Do you know that you have a king who loves you and he can relate? He's not some distant king in a far-off palace who has no idea what your name is and no idea what you're going through. He knows what you're going through. Because in Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, Matthew told us, "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which means what? God with us, as one of us. The theologian N.T. Wright says in his commentary on this, he says this, I want to read this to you, it's really good. He says, Jesus was born in a land and at a time of trouble, tension, violence, and fear. Banish all thoughts of peaceful Christmas scenes. Before the Prince of Peace had learned to walk and talk, he was a homeless refugee with a price on his head. But this is how God would set about liberating his people and bringing justice to the whole world. No point in arriving in comfort when the world is in misery. No point in having an easy life when the world suffers violence and injustice. If he is to be Emmanuel, God with us, then he must be with us where the pain is. Do you know that you have a Savior who is with you where your pain is? He knows. He knows. He is. He knows our pains. He knows our sufferings. He has truly been there. I just think it's remarkable what we see in this story. That Jesus himself was a refugee who had to flee to a safer country quickly because of an evil dictator. And listen, regardless of your political alignment, I think there's something else here in this story. There is an eye-opening scenario in this story that should compel us as Christians to treat every human, and especially refugees, with the dignity they deserve as being fellow image bearers of God. I don't see how a Christian can walk away from this story seeing Jesus as a refugee and not take that away from this. So Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16 tells us this: since these things are true, since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. You see, That's exactly who Jesus is. If you're ever not sure that he understands you or understands the pains of this world, he knows. He knows what you're going through. He knows what the people all around this world are going through under evil regimes and other places. He knows. He's been there. And he knows the sufferings in your own personal life. He knows the hang-ups. He knows the mistakes that you're going through. He has seen it. He has been there. He has put himself in our pain and our suffering because why? It was all to bring you through this new exodus, to give you a new life, to free you. You see, last week we saw that Matthew introduced us to Jesus as the new Genesis, the hope and new beginning for the world. But now we see today that the only way for that to be true, the only way for a new Genesis to take place, a new heaven and a new earth one day, is through a new exodus. Because before Jesus gets to his throne, he must suffer the cross. And he did it for you. So my question for you today is simple. Do you know his love? Do you know the love of Christ in your heart? Do you know how sweet and precious his love is towards you? He wants you. I can confidently say that. Jesus wants you. And so, how do you receive him? You just admit that you don't deserve him. Like I heard another pastor say one time, all you need to come to Christ is need. All you need is need. You just simply come to him with nothing. And you lay it all down. You lay it down at his feet and say, I have nothing to give you, and I don't deserve you. But my goodness, I want you. I want your love. I want your eternal kingdom. I want you to rule over me for the rest of all eternity. I want you, Lord God. That's faith. That's hope. That's the exodus we all need.